Vayat Ijyate Bharata Shreshta Tam Yajnam Vidhi Rajasam. Translation. But that sacrifice performed for some material end or benefit, or performed ostentatiously out of pride, is of the nature of passion, O chief of the Bharatas. Text 13. Vidhihinam arishtanam mantrahinam adakshinam shraddha virahitam yagnam tamasam parichakshate. Translation. And that sacrifice performed in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations are made to the priests, and which is faithless, that sacrifice is of the nature of ignorance. Text 14. Devad Vidya Guru Prajna Bhojanam Shaucham Arjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapa Uchyate. Translation. The austerity of the body consists in this: worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence are also austerities of the body. Text 15. Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat svadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Translation. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should always also recite the Vedas regularly. Text 16. Mana prasada somyatvam maunam atma vinigraha bhava samshudhir ityatet tapo manasam uchyate. Translation. And serenity, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purity of thought are the austerities of the mind. Text 17. Shraddhaya paraya taptam tapas tatri vindham narai afala kankshi bir yuktai satvikam parachakshate. Translation. This threefold austerity, practiced by men whose aim is not to benefit themselves materially, but to please the Supreme, is of the nature of goodness. Text 18. Satkara mana pujartam tapodambena chaivayat kriyate tariha proktam rajasam chalam adruvam. Translation. Those ostentatious penances and austerities which are performed in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. Text 19. Modha grahenat manat yat pidaya kriyate tapam parashot sadhanartam va tattamasam udahritam. Translation. And those penances and austerities which are performed foolishly by means of obstinate self-torture or to destroy or injure others are said to be in the mode of ignorance. Text 20. Datavyam iti yaddanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam. Translation. That gift which is given out of duty at the proper time and place to a worthy person and without expectation of return is considered to be charity in the mode of goodness. Text 21. Yattu pratyupakaratam phalam udishya vapuna diyate cha pariklishtam Taddanam rajasam smritam. Translation. But charity performed with the expectation of some return, or with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. All right, back to text 11, and I'll read translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 11. Of sacrifices, that sacrifice performed according to duty and to scriptural rules, and with no expectation of reward, is of the nature of goodness. Purport. The general tendency is to offer sacrifice with some purpose in mind, but here it is stated that sacrifice should be performed without any such desire. It should be done as a matter of duty. Take, for example, the performance of rituals in temples or in churches. Generally, they are performed with the purpose of material benefit, but that is not in the mode of goodness. One should go to a temple or church as a matter of duty, offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and offer flowers and eatables. Everyone thinks that there is no use in going to the temple just to worship God. But worship for economic benefit is not recommended in the scriptural injunction. One should go simply to offer respect to the deity. That will place one in the mode of goodness. It is the duty of every civilized man to obey the injunctions of the scriptures and offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right. Imagine everyone wants something in return. A lot of worshipers and even, so many people gambling. They gamble because they're admitting that they want something in return. Maybe a nicer system would be you win the Powerball and then you get to give millions of dollars away to a good charity. I mean, that would be a little nicer, a little bit more in the mode of goodness, but people are generally trying to get something in return. And it's stated here that we should visit the temples just out of goodness, out of duty. Just out of it's our obligation and to give something to please Krishna in some small way. And so it's actually our duty to visit the temples, and it's not to get something in return. We just want to serve, we just want to perform some service if we're allowed to serve. And we just want to, by going to the temple, by chanting rounds, that's like a small sacrifice. And these are the kinds of sacrifices that we want to do every day. Sacrifice a little bit of your time, not for some material benefit, but out of duty, out of respect to the deities, to show respect to the deities. And I've got a couple Jeopardy questions here that we can try a little bit later on. Text 17. Okay, and we'll do one more here. Text 12. But that sacrifice performed for some material end or benefit, or performed ostentatiously out of pride, is of the nature of passion, O chief of the Bharatas. Purport. Sometimes sacrifices and rituals are performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom or for some material benefits in this world. Such sacrifices or ritualistic performances are considered to be in the mode of passion. So who's someone that performed a lot of rituals to get material benefits? Hiranyakashipu comes to mind, and he was willing to do many penances and austerities, but he wanted to rule the world. He wanted to compete with not only Brahma but with Lord Sri Krishna himself, and so he did all these things where he looked at the sky for so long and kept his arms outraised for so long, and just to get some material benefit, just because he wanted to live longer than Brahma. Brahma said, I can't give you something which I don't have myself. I don't live forever in this body either. So how can I give you something that I don't have myself? And Hiranyakashipu he wanted to be feared by all the demons and the demigods, and he wanted to be he wanted to compete with Lord Sri Krishna, and he was willing to even murder his own son and things like this. And So that's shows us what just desiring these materialistic boons, where that takes us. There's really no end to this materialistic type of mind frame. These wishes, these material wishes and longings, and there's no end to it. It's really a cycle that one can find oneself in, and the only way out of this cycle is by finding bhakti yoga, by finding this science of self-realization, this devotion towards God, this willingness to serve, this willingness to put God in the center. And that's the only way out of that materialistic cycle. That's the only way out. Text 13, and that sacrifice performed in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations are made to the priests, and which is faithless. That sacrifice is of the nature of ignorance. Purport. Faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. Sometimes people worship some demigod just to make money and then spend the money for recreation, ignoring the scriptural injunctions. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity are not accepted as genuine. They are all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So intention. So Arjuna is asking a little bit. He's saying, which category does a man fit who follows with faith something other than Shastra? So these questions are really pertaining to someone who follows with faith something other than Shastra. Is that person in goodness, passion, or ignorance? So if Jeopardy works by, I'll say the answer, and if you think you know the question, just you can raise your hand or say Hare Krishna, or I'll try to call on you. Let's try one of these. No books, I guess, for this one. So the answer for this one is no. Let me go to this other one. The answer is one should go to a temple as a matter of blank. Hare Krishna? What is the question? Yes, Jai, Hare Krishna, that's it. Here's another one. Faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually this kind of faith, or lack thereof. Faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually this kind of faith, or lack thereof. Anybody on that one? Faithlessness, or what is faithlessness, is the answer on that one. Okay. Text 14. The austerity of the body consists in this: worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence are also austerities of the body. Purport. The Supreme Godhead here explains the different kinds of austerity and penance. First, he explains the austerities and penances practiced by the body. One should offer, or learn to offer, respect to God or to the demigods, the perfect, qualified brahmanas, and the spiritual master and superiors like father and mother, or any person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become simple in behavior. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunction. He should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctioned in the scripture only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. These are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. It's like the verse from the Garuda Purana. Om apavitra pavitra va sarvavashtam gatopi va yasmara pundarikaksham salvavantar suchi. One who remembers Krishna, one, whether pure or impure, or having passed through all conditions of material life, one who remembers lotus-eyed Krishna becomes externally and internally pure. So just by remembering Krishna, his activities and his appearance, just by remembering him, we can purify ourselves externally and internally. of course, also by chanting the Maha Mantra, and also by following the four regulative principles. Prabhupada says he should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunction. So there's certain rules of the game, and if you want to win the game, you have to play by the rules. And so there's certain rules here, and Prabhupada is stressing these as very important rules here. And so we've got some guidelines. So that's nice, because if we didn't have the guidelines, anything goes. And then we wouldn't understand why we were running into so many problems, or if things were going good, why they were going good. But here we have some instructions, and so it simplifies things. So all we have to do is follow these simple rules, and then our lives become sublime. So it's so nice that we have these simple rules to follow. Most people don't have them, and we should try to give them to them because they deserve them too. But it's not so complicated. It's been simplified by the Sampradaya and the line of disciplic succession. So it's very clear. So we just have to act in our best consciousness and act at the top of our consciousness at all times, you know. And so here's a little Jeopardy. No, don't have that one. Okay. Here's one. This category is just called the lighter side. The lighter side. And after this, maybe we'll do a quick random text out of the 700 verses. Okay, this is a little bit on the lighter side. A Vaishnava author might ask this question of an artist when needing a small painting for their Vaishnava book. It's kind of a silly, lighthearted one. A Vaishnava author might ask this question of an artist when needing a small painting for their Vaishnava book. What is, could you make me a plate? What is, could you make me a plate? You thought you might have it? Okay. Yeah, the question is, what could you make me a plate? Sorry about that one. That's pretty silly. Okay, text 15. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Purport. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. But such a teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. When speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. Text 16. And serenity, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purity of thought are the austerities of the mind. Purport. To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas of the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealing and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. An ISKCON author just released his first volume of his Mahabharata. H.D. Goswami actually just released the audio portion as well. So congratulations to him. Here's Jeopardy for 1716. Answer: detaching the mind from this will make it austere. Yes, that's it. What is sense gratification? Got it. All right. Text 17. This threefold austerity, practiced by men whose aim is not to benefit themselves materially, but to please the Supreme, is of the nature of goodness. Text 18. Those ostentatious penances and austerities, which are performed in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence, are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. Purport. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. Persons in the mode of passion arrange to be worshipped by subordinates and let them wash their feet and offer riches. Such arrangements, artificially made by the performance of penances, are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary. They can be continued for some time, but they are not permanent. All right, so ostentatious meaning attracting attention, admiration, or envy, often by being gaudy or obvious. It can also mean overly elaborate or conspicuous, ostentatious, attracting attention, admiration, or even envy. Those ostentatious penances and austerities which are performed in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. Text 19. And those penances and austerities which are performed foolishly by means of obstinate self-torture or to destroy or injure others are said to be in the mode of ignorance. Obstinate meaning refusing to change one's opinion or chosen course of action despite attempts to persuade one to do so. Obstinate. So we've got these ostentatious, obstinate austerities. Purport. There are instances of foolish penance undertaken by demons like Hiranyakashipu, who performed austere penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Brahma for such things, but ultimately he was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To undergo penances for something which is impossible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. Like to follow another's path is certainly foolish, as it's said here in this book. I see here. And just quickly here, just a quick random, I'll pick one of the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita and we'll just see what we get. We'll just try one of these and see what happens. So text 393. Chapter 10, text 22. Shishi Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. 10:22. So I'll read this one. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, knowledge. Purport. The difference between matter and spirit is that matter has no consciousness like the living entity. Therefore, this consciousness is supreme and eternal. Consciousness cannot be produced by a combination of matter. And maybe we'll do one more of these. Verse 525. 14:2. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature, which is like my own nature. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation, nor disturbed at the time of dissolution. Jai. All right. Well, what topics, what questions or comments does anyone have tonight on this Monday night? Yes, Magadari Prabhu.
So, we were speaking about purifying. So you mentioned the verse from the Garuda Purana, and you said whether we, when you think of Krishna, then you're automatically considered pure. But I was thinking, so that it's like maybe I just got really dirty, like I used the toilet or something, or I did something like that, or that one we learn about. And if I just think of Krishna, or I'm going to do my service, then I'm considered pure, but at the same time, some services, it's my service to also take a bath. So, or put on some fresh clothes or something like that, right? So there's like this, the spiritual level, pure on the spiritual level, subtle level, and then the gross level. And I was just wondering how to properly balance these things.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Internal cleanliness and external cleanliness. And I was thinking when you were speaking about how someone who's not interested in spirituality or doesn't know anything about Krishna, they can't think of Krishna. So like a negative person, like a negative atheist, their mind can't even allow them, that's not even going to happen, is thinking of Krishna. And so if one is even able to think of Krishna, that's a good sign, because some people's minds, some people can't even get control of their mind enough to think of Krishna, or their mind is saying, no, I know that's good for me, but not right now. I don't feel good enough. That's only when I'm feeling good that I do that or something. And so and the way that even the great even a great devotee said, that they were chanting, they came out grabbing their tongue. I was chanting in the restroom, and it was told to him, shouldn't I just not do that? And the young student said, no, you should do that. You should chant the Lord's name wherever you are. And so yeah, the spiritual level, the subtle level, and the gross level. Just trying to get to a standard where we think we should be of cleanliness, and where we think Guru wants us to be. It's like whether if this glass of water is for Guru and I wouldn't touch it with my left hand, then why I shouldn't allow it for myself either. It's like I should give myself. I should be honest, and even if no one's looking, I should be clean, just as if I'm handing something to Guru and I'm really watching myself, and I'm trying to be as on a good behavior as possible. And so just always thinking, guru's right there, and so just act in a way that, you know, that you feel like you can stand behind, and just get to that level of cleanliness, internally and externally, to where you feel like guru is understand, he's accepting, he's saying, yeah, that's a good level. And he's also saying be practical. I think he's saying don't be practical with it, don't go crazy, but yeah, be just have a level that you are always at, no matter if you're in front of the guru or away from the guru, I think. And does anyone have any follow-ups on that, or any additionals or side questions? Hare Krishna. Oh, Mathuranath Prabhu.
I have a question in relation to, I've been thinking about it kind of all day, and lately, since it's been so cold. Maharaj made a comment of it in the Bhagavatam class this morning. Mm-hmm. He mentioned the soul is not affected by cold. And sometimes you see videos of like yogis who are out in weather like this, in like their kopin, you know, just like trudging through the snow, seeming to be completely aloof from this cold. And I've been thinking about it in the mornings the past week when like taking bath. The soul is not affected by this cold, but I mean my body still is. And I'm just wondering, the very elevated souls in this movement, you know, that are considered very high in their realization, are still, you know, dressing for the cold, and they're still, you know, seemingly affected by these things, even though they have a very high realization that they're not their body, they're not their mind. So I'm wondering, like, what did that comment mean that Maharaj was saying this morning about the soul not being affected by the cold? And, you know, if we actually understand that we're not the body and not the mind, why is it that we're still, you know, affected by all of this?
Yeah, the soul is not affected by the cold, and of course the famous verse that it cannot be withered by wind or fire, burnt by fire, or scorched or moistened by water, or cut into pieces. And because eternal nature of the soul, the eternal nature of the soul, and that is nice to be reminded of, because when we know that we're eternal, we stop just living for the day, because we know that if reincarnation is real, and we have to think of the future, and we have to think about this next body that we're going to get. But this devotees also know that they aren't affected by the cold. Sometimes it is a little bit of mind over matter. You know, just because everyone else is shivering, there might be one person that maybe thinking about Krishna, and can just say, just because everyone else is shivering, I don't have to shiver, or I want out of that pain of shivering. I want out of that inescapable cold, and Krishna can be there for that person, but they know Krishna will warm them up, and the soul is not affected by the cold. But yeah, at the same time, that idea of be practical, you know, it's one time I was getting a plate for Guru downstairs when I was first serving, getting to serve Guru Dev a little bit, and I wanted to take up his plate first and then take my own plate. I didn't feel right taking both plates up at the same time, but Valmiki gave me a nice piece of practical advice. He just said, just be practical, and, you know, take both up. You can put them side by side and take them up. Just be practical, you know, and it wasn't, by me doing that, I wasn't speaking or going against Guru in that way, or putting myself on that same platform. He just said, be practical. And so that always stuck with me, just the being practical. But I think some of us have known that feeling of when it's really cold outside, and we know that we used to be maybe more affected by it at that moment, but Krishna is kind of like, he's protecting us. And we also know that even if I go outside and do like a cold plunge or something, I know he's going to protect me, and I'm going to get warmed up pretty quick. And that feeling of being warmed back up again, that's Krishna's love. Just like the way the taste of water when you're so dehydrated, that's taste of Krishna. So those are just a couple top of the head thoughts there. If anyone has any, yes, yes, Radhastali Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maternath Prabhu's question reminds me of a conversation that actually Krishnendu Prabhu has shared with Jakeshava and I about pain. And not to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if you remember that conversation about pain that you had with Maharaj, and if you could share the answer that he said, because this is kind of similar to that of like us, like when we're not on the bodily platform, that question of like, you know, one who is not on the bodily platform can't really feel pain, or, yeah, do you remember that? Would you speak on that?
I don't really remember that so much, but it's the same principle. So it's like Krishna obviously says that the soul is never cut, he's never burned, and so on and so forth. So later in the Bhagavad Gita, he describes the body as being a yantra, which is a machine. So if you think of like you're driving in a car and the car gets in a crash, so obviously there's a driver required for the car to be in action. And if the car crashes, then it's destroyed, it's hurt, it's broken. So similarly, the car is like the body. And if the body is getting disturbed in various ways, because you're identified with the body, you become, attached to that pain, to those problems. But when the driver crashes the car, only the car's hurt, the driver's okay, presumably, if it's not like a fatal crash. But if he's really attached to the car, then he feels the pain much worse because he feels like he's losing something, but it's not actually him. So, where I'm going with this is, Maturnath's mentioning these yogis and kopins and, going through the Himalayas. So, viewing the body like a machine, the different yogic processes are more mechanical. Like pranayama is a mechanical process to manipulate the mind and the body so you can control your mind and go into higher states of trance. Prabhu mentioned like a cold plunge. You jump in cold water and it elicits a shock from the body. It's a shock response, to the mechanical system. So our process isn't so mechanical. Our process is just rendering service to Krishna, and then all the purification will come with that. So we may feel cold and our body may feel distress, but we don't have to identify with that. The more closely we identify with it, then the more disturbing it is. But where the distinction between the separation of feeling and not feeling, I don't know, because Srila Prabhupada is pure devotee on the highest platform, and he's wearing clothes, he's taking care of himself. He explicitly preferred warm weather rather than cold weather. So I just, this reminds me of something like my Guru Maharaj would say. It's like, if we go outside and it's a nice sunny day, it's not that like I go outside, I'm like, oh, it's a nice sunny, oh, I'm in Maya. It's a nice sunny day. We acknowledge it for what it is, because our process isn't a negation of everything, this is Maya, that's Maya, because the devotee sees Krishna's hand behind everything, then he can, enjoy and experience things in different ways. So, we can even experience the cold and just see it as being Krishna's significant power. So, that's just a few thoughts, but the principle is that if we don't identify with the body, then we won't feel that, but at the same time, the body is a machine and it needs and requires certain things to act.
I had a little realization of this question recently on Harinam, or in various services, with it being this cold. If you're so absorbed in your service, you don't notice it at all. Like Radha Damodar and I will go out on Harinam and it will be like well below freezing. We'll be in the van, and when we start, like, it's totally cold. But if you just get absorbed in the chanting and absorbed in the service, you don't notice it anymore. Because the level of absorption is such on a high level. This happens in the mornings when it's really cold doing pujari service. Like, don't notice the cold at all. Like, you're wearing just thin cloth up there. You don't notice it if you're very, very absorbed in the service that you're given. So we can have practical glimpses of this, of like being aloof to the body and its needs. If you're so absorbed in your service and thinking about Krishna, you'll have little glimpses of it. But to think about somebody who can sustain this on a very high level all the time, without necessarily like needing to engage his body in practical service, that this is a very, very high level. For somebody to just not need any practical service, they're so absorbed of thinking about Krishna that they're not even, feeling these bodily miseries so much, not paying attention to them, because knowing, the soul is not affected by these changes.
Jai, thank you all very much. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki